Good to know you have rejoined us again on the program. Good morning, Abuja, and it is showing only on the Unity Station NTA, Channel 5. Now we have a guest in the studio and want to talk about our environment. Our environment is the only wonderful gift given to us by our Creator. Hence, the need to manage our environment very well. This morning, we'll be looking at environmental management in project planning and implementation. And I've been joined with an environmentalist to do justice to our topic before us this morning. Help us welcome Dr. Damilola Additional to the program. Doctor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All
Good
right.
morning.
It's good to see you on our show this morning.
Thank you.
Okay. Like I said, our environment is the only gift, wonderful gift given to us by our Creator. So we need to make a conscious effort to take care of our environment. As we look at environmental management in project planning and implementation this morning, I want us to start. What is environmental management for a layman to really understand what we are talking about?
Okay, thank you very much. I like the fact that you started with the fact that environment is that which is given to us by Creator,
Yes.
and the need to manage it. When you have something and you manage it well, it means you are going to be able to enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
So
Yes.
basically, environmental management is, guys say, is that process through which we try to minimize the impact, the negative impact, basically, of human environment relationships to ensure that we can enjoy the environment that our Creator has given to us
Okay.
effectively and then achieve what we call sustainability.
Okay, it's a very good and simple definition. So when you say I want you to pick out the negative impact so that we understand it more.
Okay, so let's look at the balance in the environment.
Okay.
God has given us free air to breathe,
Okay.
oxygen. And when you look at the structure of the environment, the atmospheric structure of the environment, you have oxygen, which is supposed to be like 21%. You have nitrogen, which is supposed to be 78%. You have other gases. So any activity of man that alters this balance,
Yes.
I'm just talking about air alone.
Air alone.
Altering that balance alone is shifting from what nature has given to us, and then it becomes something difficult. When you look at other aspects of the environment, other media like the soil upon which we grow plants that we consume, when you look at water that we depend upon to drink, to feed our animals and do other things, when this water becomes polluted, we're not going to be able to reach the full potential that we're supposed to get from it. The ecosystem services is distorted. So basically, taking care of our environment, managing it properly when we are implementing projects is very, very important to enable us continue to enjoy the environment as much as our Creator has intended for us.
Okay, when you were talking about altering, because you use the air as an example,
Yes.
altering
The balance.
the balance, the air. I want you to, before we come down to project planning and implementation, I want you to really tell us the form to which we can alter the air.
Okay, so basically introducing substances
Okay.
that carries pollutants.
All right.
For instance, as activities that you and I or every one of us probably contribute to, includes probably driving our cars. We have exhaust fumes that carries certain noxious gases that can alter the natural balance in the environment. We also have other activities such as power generation. We have activities, even as I was coming into this studio this morning, I got to a particular point and I started perceiving certain, which means activities that so every activity of man in relation to the environment produces energy. And this energy, in most cases, introduce alterations into the atmosphere that can alter the balance, I said earlier. And then some of the activities that we also, as human beings, some of the activities that we carry out also pollute our water system, pollute our soil, and all of that. So all this creates a lot of alterations in the natural ecosystem.
Okay. That's a very good one. We decide to establish all of this so that we drive to where we are going and make our explanation very, very simple. Now, bringing it down to project planning and implementation. Why do we need environmental management plan on projects?
Okay, so let me start with environmental management plan.
Okay.
And say it's a kind of a safeguard tools.
Okay.
Now, when you look at the word safeguard, that is safeguarding.
Safeguarding.
So, an environmental and social management plan, as the case may be, is a safeguard tool that helps us to minimize the impact of projects on the environment. Don't forget that we have projects, we embark on projects for the people, basically. We have buildings, we have roads, we have power generation, transmission, distribution, name them. They are all to the benefit of human beings. However, as we are planning and implementing this project, there are impacts on the environment.
Sure.
That will not allow the same human being for which we want to get this project in place to enjoy it effectively. So that means we must create a balance. And one of the safeguard tools that can help us to minimize or avoid or minimize the impact so that the project that we are implementing can be enjoyable to us, safeguarding human being as safeguarding the environment that the human being depends upon is an environmental management plan.
Okay, that is a very good one. You always talk about creating balance and creating balance. Now, in creating balance, what are the steps in conducting environmental management plan? We want you to bring them out for us to be able to understand them step by step.
Okay, so basically, preparing an environmental and social management plan may not be something that the whole world will understand, except probably those who are involved in project management or safeguard specialists or as case may be. I'll try to simplify it as much as possible.
Right.
So basically, it is more like, first of all, we need to understand the project that we're planning or we're planning to implement.
Okay.
So, for instance, you cannot plan for something you don't know.
You don't know, yes.
What kind of project are we talking about? You must understand it first. That's the first step. Secondly, you must understand the legal and regulatory framework because every activity, everywhere we have laws and regulations that guides what we do. So understanding and identifying and understanding the legal and regulatory frameworks guiding such an activity. For instance, in Nigeria and in some other places in the world, but I will give an example of Nigeria. Okay. We have the Environmental Impact Assessment CAP E12 LFN 2004 that requires that every major development must undergo the process of an environmental and impact assessment. Sure. So such is an act that when developing a project, we must think of how the project will comply with such an act. Globally as well, there are several other, each country have theirs, yes. But also there are international standards that requires that projects must be subjected to the process of environmental and social impact assessment. Okay. And as part of this process is developing an environmental and social management plan. So step 2 is more like looking at the legal and regulatory framework. So after that, then is the fact that we need to be able to identify the stakeholders. Okay. Because I want to implement a project and I'm at the planning stage. That doesn't mean that I can do it alone. There are stakeholders. Okay, yes, who are the people around the area where this project is to be implemented? Who are the regulatory authorities? They are also stakeholders. Who are the people that will be impacted directly or indirectly by this project? So yes. They are stakeholders that we must identify and consult, because one of the process of consultation is to allow what we call project affected persons to be part of solutions to their problems.
Solutions to the problem. Very interesting.
Just like it is said where I come from, that you cannot shave someone in his absence. Wow. So therefore, if a project is going to impact on certain people and you don't consult them to let them know what you want to do, how it's going to affect them, and give them opportunity to contribute in suggestions to how these problems can be avoided or resolved, then we're not doing it. So the third stage critically is identifying and engaging stakeholders.
Okay. you are able to give us so many steps, up to three. I know you have more
Yeah,
to add.
there are
Yes, you are
more.
going to respond to more steps, but let's quickly go on this quick break. When we come back, you continue. All right. The program is Good Morning Abuja. Let's quickly go on this quick break. When we come back, we'll still be here to discuss the topic we have before you this morning. Stay with us, please. Welcome back, and the program is Good Morning Abuja. If you've just tuned in, and before we went on that break, you were trying to give us some steps. You're giving us three, or you can make progress with the rest.
Okay, thank you very much. So the third one, like I said earlier, was identifying and engaging stakeholders. So within this process of identifying stakeholders, there are impacts that we are going to be able to identify. So the fourth step is more like identifying impact. Don't forget that the first step is to understanding the project, being able to identify the activities step by step. So bring them into uh, the stakeholders aspect, whereby as we identify the stakeholders, we discuss with them, we're able to identify the impact. But in between those two is also what we call environmental and social baseline. That is understanding the environmental components, understanding the social fractions or the social components, within the project area, so that by the time we put the activities, the environmental and social baseline together with stakeholders engagement or stakeholder consultation, we're able to come up with impact. So that makes like point 4 and 5 baseline, that's environmental and social baseline, then identifying environmental and social impact. And as we identify that, we also provide mitigation measures to them. So these mitigation measures are largely to help us avoid those impacts. Those that are not avoidable, we'll be able to minimize them. Those that are not minimizable at the end of the day, or the ones that will remain, we're able to do what we call offset. Because as a matter of fact, there is this maxim that says that there is no development without destruction. Something must give way to somebody. But how do we ensure, like I always say, creating a balance? How do we ensure that we reduce as much as possible or we avoid as much as possible the impact of projects on our environment? Because at the end of the day, what is the use of road where there are no human beings to drive through the road? So basically, when we identify the impact, we have mitigation measures preferred for them. And then from that, we'll move to the sixth point, which is now trying to put a plan together, which is now the environmental and social management plan. That is the mitigation measure that we have identified now. We're now trying to put it into a practicable plan, implementable plan. Okay, so we're going to have an impact. We have this mitigation. How do we implement it in terms of at what point are we implementing it? Who is responsible for the implementation? What are the measurable indicators for us to be able to monitor that that mitigation measure is being implemented? At what point are we monitoring? Who is responsible for monitoring? So we look at roles and responsibilities. We look at other variables that are very, very important for an environmental social management plan, such as cost. Because you want to implement a mitigation measure, there must be some level of cost attached to it. So this is more like the sixth, step, and it also takes us to the seventh step, which is more like the part of the sixth step, which is more of monitoring. The steps are enormous. They are enormous, but they are interwoven because you must move from one to the other, and they depend on each other. For instance, if we go back to if we skip step 3 and 4, where we talk about stakeholders identification and consultations, from that moment, you skip that, failure sets in because we are not going to be able to identify as much impact as we should be able to identify, which means that when the project is now being implemented, there will be impacts that are not expected, which will either stall project, work against project, or make the project not even work at all. And that is not the intention of any project that was planned to be implemented. Wow. This is very interesting to me. And having given us these steps, like you said, they are all interwoven. If you miss one and you don't carry out another one, it will affect the other steps. And talking about creating balance that you're always that you refer to. Now, I want you to bring out the responsibility of the host community. Like you said, if you're, for instance, if you're trying to create a road and
create a road for people to use.
Yes.
The implementation, it might affect the host community. Now, I want you to take us through the responsibility of the host community and the project team to succeed in the management plan.
Okay, so while talking about the process, the procedure, a lot of stakeholders were identified. And critical among these stakeholders is a project host community.
Sure.
So it is important for the project host community and the project implementers, first of all, to work together. And that's why I said if you skip a process or any part of the process, there's a problem already.
Okay.
So, for instance, where the project host communities are not even aware of the project that is to come to them, definitely you don't see their support. And the support is so much important to the success of such a project.
Sure.
So the balance between the project host community, project implementers is a key thing, if I will call it social licensing. Social licensing that is granted by who? By the project host communities. But before that is granted, there's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of discussions that has to do with, okay, this is how this project is going to impact on you negatively, this is what you stand to benefit positively, and this is how we're going to be able to look at some of these negative impacts in avoiding them, in reducing them, or offsetting them, compensating for them, or as the case may be. So basically, coming to your point, the role of the project implementer is to ensure that every necessary steps are taken to develop an environmental and social management plan, identify the critical stakeholders, and the role of the project host community is also to ensure that having been consulted, having been carried along, they also contribute their quota to the success of the implementation of the environmental management plan in terms of all the roles and responsibilities as assigned. Now, this roles and responsibility does not start and stop with project implementers and host communities alone. There are other stakeholders, government regulators, non-government organizations, as the case may be. But again, these two stakeholders are at the beginning and the end of it all. So they must work together, even for other stakeholders to be able to function effectively and for the project to move seamlessly.
Okay. Now, once you, having given us the overview of all of this, we want you to point out the benefits of conducting the environmental management plan.
You know, there is this maxim that says that failure to plan
You're planning to fail.
Is planning to fail.
Okay.
So basically, when you have an environmental and social management plan for your project prior to implementation, okay, it gives you seamless implementation. Why? Because you are not going to be caught unaware of anything. Let me give you an hypothetical example. You go to a community where they have some cultural heritage issues, no, not issues, maybe some cultural values that you as a project implementer you are not even aware of, and you have not consulted them. Maybe there's a particular day of the year that visitors are not supposed to come out. And that is the day that you plan to carry out your activities and all of those things. That will be a problem. Yes. So you can avoid this problem by having an environmental and social management plan, okay, through which in the process you have consulted them, you know all of these things. It helps you to plan, it helps you to save resources, it helps you to ensure that your project goes seamlessly without having issues.
Wow, thank you so much. Well, quickly, before I let you go, your final words.
Okay, so my final word on this program this morning is just to encourage project implementers not to overlook the very important aspect of project success, which is developing and implementing an environmental and social management plan for all your projects, because it's a key to the success of every project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have heard. I want to appreciate your time with us this morning on our program, having taken us through the environmental management, what it's all about, what we need to do to create balance when we talk about project planning and implementation. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning, Dr. Damilola Adeshina. We do really appreciate your time.
You're most welcome.
All right. The program is Good Morning Abuja. Let's quickly go on this quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us, please.